Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to all our supporters. Thank you to everyone who's been with us since we began this journey. And to our new listeners, long-time listeners, we say don't forget to subscribe on www.whitelabelamerican.com. Easily go there and drop your 5-star reviews, leave feedback in written form or by voicemail. And if you want to leave donations for us, hey, we accept any amount you want to drop. Do that. And we're adding more platforms that you can use to drop donations for us. But for now, it's only PayPal that you can use for donations. But we're going to add more platforms as time goes on. And we have new merch available. So you can get T-shirts, hoodies, mugs, stickers, and a lot more items over there. And you'll be supporting not only myself, you'll be supporting a veteran-owned business, and a minority-owned business too. So, yeah, go over there and help the business grow. And for today's recommendation, I'll be recommending a bunch of comics from today's guest, and he'll be telling you more about it. So go to PKMM Entertainment and pick up Core and Law of Resistance. I enjoy both stories, and you'll be getting more about both of them when you get to meet today's guest. So without much delay, I dive into today's guest, who is an illustrious guest. I'm highly honored to have someone who I've known for a few years. He's a good friend and someone who I'm very inspired by. He's a comics visual artist. He's great at drawing. He's a writer. He's an educator into marble carving, sculptor. And I'm told he's also into martial arts. So there's so much that comes from this man. He's worked with Marvel, he's worked with 21st Century Fox, and there's a lot more to him. But hey, you got to hear from him. You don't want to hear from me. You got to hear from this man himself. So without much being said, I introduce Mr. Ian Dorian. Welcome on the show. How you doing today, sir?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. I've been listening to your show and often. I follow it regularly. And we've known each other for several years. You're a really wonderful person. You and your family, fantastic and beautiful family. And you're a very enthusiastic supporter of comics and entertainment. Your program reveals a lot of insights about any subject that you address. And to be on the show is really exciting because it's one thing to talk about what one does, but it's another to talk about it with someone that you admire. And I admire you as well. It's not, none of this is done alone. Creators, comic book creators and book creators, writers, authors, artists, we tend to get a lot of attention for what we do, but the reality is we all work together. The collectors, the fans, even the original art collectors, historians, we're all a part of this process. You know, virtually every creator began as a fan. So the keeping it alive as a fan keeps the creators able to put food on their table and continue to make books and stories and inspire other people for the next generation.
Well,
one of the benefits. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for also being an inspiration. And so, before we dive into your history before I go with the regular questions that I ask guests on the podcast, I'm going to go a different route today. You are with PKMM Entertainment. Can you please introduce those of us who aren't familiar? I'm familiar with PKMM, but the audience who aren't familiar with that, can you please tell them what's about and what you guys do over there?
Sure, absolutely. So I work for PKMM Entertainment. PKMM has a shop online. You can find easily, just put PKMM Entertainment or PKMM Shop or entertainmentshop.com. They'll all come up. We have two flagship titles, Law of Resistance and Core. The books are along with a lot of really great creators. PKMM was established when I worked for the Department of Defense with Matthew Pilata and his father Pete and several other members like Mark so that's a family business. It's a contractor, military contractor. They do not make weapons. They actually handle defense, and they mostly do things to protect and to help keep soldiers and other people alive. So it's a different approach. Most of the time, people think of military contractors. They think of Tony Stark, somebody creating missiles to blow things up.
Yeah,
but there are a lot of contractors, and as well. You served, so
that's true.
there are a lot of contractors that provide services for telecommunications, for radar systems, and other things for the sake of protecting people.
That's right.
So I like to think of PKMM as a shield, as opposed to a sword.
That's
so.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So when working with them, we had been discussing very much. I had worked years before that. At that time, I was working as a professor at several different colleges and universities. I was at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia in the illustration department. I had been a critic over at Parsons School of Design in New York, and I had taught at several colleges. Mostly I taught illustration. I was an instructor at the Joe Kubert School. Mike Chen hired me. I taught advanced anatomy and mixed media and several other courses. A lot of my students, or at least I can tell you a good handful of them, have become quite successful from my perspective. They've gone on to become animation directors. They've gone on to work with Zemeckis and other directors on major films. And so I'm very proud of having taught at the Kubert School. Joe and I got along very well. Joe Kubert, Erwin Hazen, Hy Eisman, Andy and Adam Kubert, and there were others. But I can tell you, I would have lunch with Joe every Wednesday. It was really fantastic. Spend time in his studio. He would talk to me about my work. Adam Kubert was very open and very helpful to me to return to the comics industry and also grow as an illustrator. So at that time, I was also at PKMM, working for them under a contract for the Department of Defense. So Matthew, the youngest brother, and I are best friends. We've been best friends for a very, very long time, since the 90s. And Matthew is a systems integrator, and he does other work for the government, but he is also a very passionate person regarding the arts. He's extremely passionate about storytelling. He's extremely passionate about cinema and cinematography in particular, and comic books and animation. He's a consumer, but he's also a creator. I mean, he co-created Law of Resistance with myself and Jim Kruger. Jim Kruger, most people know from Earth X and Paradise X, and many other stories, that he did with Alex Ross, and collectively we got together and made Law of Resistance. So we decided we wanted to do something. From what I understand, there were companies that were trying to get funds that would contact them to get funds to make their own movies and so forth and intellectual properties. And Matthew and his father came to me and said, we would like you to help us create our own intellectual properties as a separate entity, separate contract, etc. And so, lucky for me, on a lot of my downtime and afterwards from the DoD, I was able to work for PKMM as well, both in-house and then later as a freelancer for the last 7 years or so. And we've created lots of IPs. Now, producing it, coming up with an IP, an intellectual property, which is something like Captain America, the X-Men,
Yeah.
or
Spider-Man.
Exactly. Coming up with something like that, really the characters are interesting, but they only become valuable when you put them into the context of experiences that other people can both identify with and appreciate. So people love Peter Parker because he's always the underdog.
That's
He's
right.
the geeky underdog who just wants to do the right thing. And deep down, we all feel unappreciated and like we want to do the right thing. You know, the difference between Peter Parker and Superman is Superman, as people came to know him early on, since 38, was that Superman did what was always right, knew what was right. So we aspired to be like Superman, but some of the disillusionment for readers was that they could never be Superman because they just couldn't see themselves as always doing the right thing. Peter Parker tries to do the right thing. In the end, he does, but he makes a lot of mistakes along the way. And that makes him more accessible to the
Relatable.
reader.
Yeah.
Yes, and relatable. And I think that was a culmination of several different minds. Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and several others. Now we can talk forever about the conflict between the two, but
Oh,
that
we
we
will.
can get on that
We
if you.
will. Sorry to
But
cut you, but
so PKMM,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to come back to creating relatable characters, but I didn't want us to go too
Sure,
far into
sure.
into that. But I think we got a fair intro into PKMM, and I want to come back to you, Ian, and I want to begin with who Ian is. So you have a fascinating, I would say, an interesting origin. So we want the origin story of Ian Dorian. So we're going to make this an origin story of Ian Dorian, and
I
yeah,
appreciate it.
and as part of your origin, you come from a family that has there's a lot of diversity of cultures tied to your family and yourself. So, can you give us, just a brief insight into the origin of Ian?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much. Second of all, I have to tell you, I'm a big fan of everyone in my mind. And I appreciate that this moment it's focused on me, but everyone has in my mind a fascinating history and origin. And I'm glad to be a part of the carbon-based bipedal life forms that we refer to as human beings. Um, that being said, I yes, it is true. I do come from an incredibly diverse family. My family is a mix of Eurasians, some Europeans, North Africans, South Africans, um, um, collectively married in the family, and from relatives and so forth, and then nephews and nieces. We have Africans, Asians. I personally, my genetic background is North African, so Egyptian, Armenian, from Western Armenia, as Turks would refer to it as Eastern Turkey.
Mm.
My family, my grandmother, my father's parents come from Erzurum, which is a city at the foot of Mount Ararat. Um, my mother's father was half Jewish, Ukrainian, and half Mongolian. During the Bolshevik movement, a lot of Jews escaped and left and went into China and Mongolia, and then later either remained there or returned back into Russia or what was the Soviet Union and also to the Ukraine. Um, my father, his family, my grandparents left due to the situation in Turkey during World War One, and went down into Istanbul and then into southern France, which is Marseille.
Yep.
And my father was naturalized in Marseille and grew up there. They thought they had escaped problems and turmoil, and then the Nazis came. My father had joined the French army. The war lasted. Ended after my father did some time in service, and then my father came to the United States. So, on my father's side, my brothers and sisters and I am the youngest boy. There are six of us, seven actually.
Wow.
Seven because my father remarried and had another child, and I consider some people would refer to her as half sister. I just figure if she's any part of my sister, she's my sister.
That's right.
With all love and appreciation for her presence. So we are the firstborn generation in America. Our family is really not Western Europeans, although my father was born in Western Europe and France. He was not a Western European. We are Eurasian people and North African people. And it was subculturally in the home was very different. So outside, I grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I grew up during the creation and development of rap in popular culture. I grew up right at the tail end of Vietnam War, and I identified as a Jew, as a Jewish child, but I lived in an environment that was mostly not of my complexion nor of my religious background. So I felt a little different. I felt different during the holidays because most holidays, today we have spring break and winter break and all of these other things. But back in those days, it was called Christmas break and Easter break, which I would celebrate Hanukkah. And I mean, we did the Christian celebrations, but as custom.
Okay.
I will say today that my family is very diverse in terms of religious beliefs. There are Muslims in my family, Jews in my family, Christians in my family, and I would go so far as to say other belief systems. But I will say one thing: when we get together, we're all kinds of colors and faces and complexions and we have different languages that we all share. Some of us know more than one language. My eldest brother speaks Armenian and English. I speak Spanish, and I'm pretty good with Italian. Not so bad with German.
Oh,
but
wow.
English was my first language.
Yeah.
But then we have other family members as well. And we have some future family members that are I can see in the generations after mine. I've been lucky enough to be a great, or I'm not sure if the term is great or grand uncle. So I have no children of my own currently, but I would say that I have a huge, huge family of children that identify me as a parent figure, which I deeply appreciate. I love children very much. this kind of mixed kid that blue eyes but olive skin, dark hair, growing up in what was predominantly African American and Hispanic subcultural environment.
Yeah.
I never. Sometimes I felt different, but only when I was told.
Mm.
You see,
Yeah.
one of the benefits that I had was to see everyone as my friend. I didn't see the difference, the way and I'll tell you why, because we were incredibly impoverished. I was the poorest of the people I knew. And some people might think that can't be possible because I happen to have a lighter complexion. But I have to be honest, just being all truly honest, I was the poorest of them. And I grew up on welfare, and I didn't live in any better conditions. I had no father. It was just my mother at home.
Yeah.
My mother was ill from the time I was a young boy. I was an orphan by the time I was a young teen. I was a ward of the court, belonged to the system. Luckily, I had some family members willing to take me in. I moved to a very small town along the shore to live with my older sister, and if it wasn't for that, and my aunt who was able to help us out, and the state and the government, I would have been on the street. I wasn't living in any special kind of situation, and the contrast to that was that because of that situation, I felt like, I'm a child. I didn't spend a lot of time looking in the mirror. I spent a lot of time looking at my friends and identifying how we associated psychologically and emotionally. So, and our families were very close, regardless. The benefit I had was that there were many people of many different cultures. I happened to be very close with and inspired by and taught by and protected by people in my city and town. Because back in the 70s, parents didn't get mad if another parent watched out for you. They expected that the parent across the street would tell you if you were doing something wrong and let them know. There was this idea of where the community could communicate with one another, parents and so forth, about the child. Hey, I saw your kid doing something wrong. I think you should watch him. Hey, you go home. I know your mom. I'm going to tell your mom what you did. And there was this expectation where you sort of said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to people. And while that might seem to some people not acceptable behavior today, I don't know if it is or not. But at my time, it was a comfortable situation because we expected them to do that, and they expected to do that for us. It wasn't against us; it was for us.
It was community looking out for the community. That's what it sounded like, and that's what it was.
The only time I would say I was aware of my difference more, because people say, well, you're supposed to see color. The context for which people identify that language today, the way that people identify that language today, it makes sense for today's sensibilities, and it makes perfect sense to me, of course. But in that time, there was such the generation before our generation, there was a strong division of color and culture. Like my aunt referred to her marriage to my uncle as a mixed marriage because she was a Christian and he was a Jew. Today, most people would not refer to that as a mixed marriage. So it's important when judging the language people use to put it into the context for which it was developed and the time. Because once we translate it to a new context and a new time, it sounds wrong. So it is important that we identify the sensibility and language of the time and then apply that logic to the use of those terms. And then we understand the people better and what their true intentions were. That being said, there were times when when it was made clear to me that I was different, although I never felt that way because we were all living a very similar at the time experience, at least my close friends and I.
Yeah.
Um, and the when I knew it was different was when one time, well, there were several times, many times actually. I was one of the only lighter skinned kids, even though I'm olive to light skinned people. I'm light to darker skinned people. So if I was, my brother and I were pretty much our family was one of the only lighter skinned families. So when someone was very angry and they were angry at lighter skinned people, there wasn't many people to look at or to point the finger at, except for our family. So there, to give some insight into that, if you're the only one, you're going to be the one.
Okay. I,
So
I
there,
get it.
so there were times when I was subject to aggressive behavior. It was brief, luckily for me, and my friends uh, um, defended and protected me as well from any harm, and they loved us very much. And we were very lucky to have a very very loving group of people that cared for us and didn't see us as some form of enemy or something based on the complexion of our skin. And they came to our aid and protection because they saw beyond that. So we were very lucky in that sense. But there were times when um, uh, I've been assaulted or attacked for being different.
Forbidden different.
And well, things like you don't belong here. What are you
And that
doing
all
here?
this was during childhood, right?
During my childhood, yes, yes.
Okay.
But I
So
have to
I don't
say
want to
again,
dwell on the negative, but it's still part of your story. But because the next question I have will step away from the negative, but it's
absolutely,
more in the positive that we are going to.
absolutely.
Not saying the negative doesn't count because all
No, it's
I'm
all
a
part of
believer
how
that
we're
yeah,
formed.
it's all part of how we're formed. Yes, I agree with that. But this is a very important question to me and to my audience. Um, from your childhood, what do you consider your favorite childhood memory? And I believe you've already given an insight into this question, but I just want to hear it from you.
As you ask me now, and I think about it, um, I have to say I had a lot of really great childhood memories. Um, uh, well, I have I'm a somewhat complex person in that regard, so I don't usually answer questions directly. I come up with 5 different reasons why I like 10 different things, but probably one of my greatest childhood memories was, um, well, certainly it would have been dancing with my mother. It was my greatest childhood. Probably one of my greatest childhood memories. I miss her very much. I have since she's been gone the majority of my life, and uh, the love of a mother is just incomparable. Um, uh, so dancing with my mother, I would say, discovering comic books was one of my greatest childhood memories. The first time I read a comic book was, I think it was illustrated by George Perez and drawn. The cover was by Jack Kirby. It was Avengers. It's in
Wow.
1976. I think it was a 1975 or 76 cover. I picked it up at a barber shop because the barber shops in Elizabeth, New Jersey would keep magazines and comic books to keep kids occupied while they were waiting to get their hair cut, nervous and maybe even afraid to get their hair cut. I was a child, and I remember picking up the book, being incredibly fascinated by the power and the amazing images of Jack and so forth. Um, but I have so many great memories. I remember my best friend as a child, and still like my brother today. I don't even refer to him as a friend. Um, um, Garth Bracey and my twin brother Guy, Dorian, and myself. The three of us would get together on the weekends. Garth and I went to the School for the Gifted and Talented, William F. Halloran in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and my brother ended up attending the school as well. and we were all artists, and we were in the art program, and we would draw all weekend long. We would go to the fairs, and my aunt would take us, and we would collect Bruce Lee magazines and Muhammad Ali images and posters and comic books. We would get comic books, and we would sit down and draw and draw and draw and draw. Every character we could. We would make up our own scenarios. I was a huge fan of the probably the first comic book that I bought, like not bought for me, that I bought and that I fully read was Power Man and Iron Fist.
Wow.
Illustrated by Trevor Von Eden. And it was guest starring the X-Men. And that's how I discovered the X-Men. I actually discovered them through Power Man and Iron Fist. And years later, I got to know Trevor, and Trevor and I became good friends. And I love Trevor. And I remember that he walked up to me at a convention. I was actually a guest in New York City, and this maybe 16 years ago or something like that. And I'm not big in stature, but this man about my size or so comes up to me, caramel, darker complexion, and he says, "Hi, I just want to tell you, I heard that you love my work. I really love your work. Your work is beautiful." I said, "Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that you like my work. I'm Ian Dorian. What's your name?" And he says, "Trevor Von Eden." I said, "Oh my God." My brother and I flipped out. "Trevor, this is amazing. We love your work. You're such an inspiration to us." And we started telling him how he was the first book we ever read fully and went through and everything. And he says, "You expected a 6-foot-tall white guy, didn't you?" We just laughed. We said, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't even know if we knew how to pronounce it when we were kids.
That story never gets old. I remember you telling me that story first time we met.
Trevor and I became good friends, and Trevor is a very intelligent, very talented man. One of the most passionate people I've ever met.
Oh, that's just beautiful.
He did a fabulous book, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
He did
go ahead.
He did a graphic novel series, you should really, if you can, check it out, everyone, the audience. It's called The Original Johnson.
The Original Johnson?
Yes. It's about Jack Johnson.
Oh.
It's why men call their parts a Johnson and so forth.
Oh.
Jack Johnson, of course, was one of the greatest, if not, no offense to Muhammad Ali or anyone else, maybe the greatest fighter that ever lived. If you know Jack Johnson's story, he was an individual thinker. He was not afraid to express his thoughts and opinions, but he was attacked socially for, there was literally no one in the world that could defeat him. And some people, especially the supremacists of olden days and of his time, I should say, tried very hard to find people to beat him, and they just couldn't. And Jack Johnson isn't just a story about being a great fighter. What he did for blacks, what he did to inspire all people as Americans, what he did to inspire the idea of your individual power and trusting in yourself. That was Jack Johnson. So if you get a chance, a tremendous graphic novel by Trevor Von Eden, The Original Johnson.
The Original Johnson. All right, I'll check it out. So when you were talking about your first comic that you read, Jack Kirby's Avengers, you reminded me of you brought a memory that I'd forgotten about. Even in Nigeria, well, it wasn't in the barber shop, but back in my childhood days in the city of Jos, when they used to take me for a haircut, the store right next to the barber shop had comics, and that was the first time I started getting comics. But I wasn't getting comics myself. It was my elder brother, because he was 11 years older than I. He's 11 years older than myself. So we'll go get haircuts, and then he'll go get a comic right after our haircuts, and then that was like my introduction to comics. And,
Yes, fantastic, right?
yeah, so I'd forgotten about that until you
Oh,
yeah, until you mentioned getting uh, seeing comic books in the
oh,
barber
I'm glad
shop.
that you, yeah, I'm glad you identified. If I can put it into context for the any audience that's younger than us, TV was black and white with rounded screens and poor reception. Um, uh, Movie theaters were expensive for us as children. Most of the time, we couldn't go without an adult or something like that.
Hmm.
But to put it into context, there was no handheld devices. There were
Oh
no,
no.
um, there was no, and video games were just being created when I was a child. So it was boop, 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 or Pac-Man, bucka, 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 bucka. It was nothing like today. So if you wanted full color entertainment that you could carry in your hand or put in your pocket, the only thing that really existed was comic books.
That's true. That's true though. Yeah, I never
Yeah,
thought of
it
it
was.
that way.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
it was the only full color entertainment you can carry, open when you want. It was carry with you. You can afford to buy it. When I bought comics, they were switching from 20 cents to 25 cents. Now I think the average price is $4.99.
Yeah.
So
4.99.
so 25 times the price today. So that also has to do with the kind of paper they print on, and et cetera, et cetera. The process, the distribution costs. But so as a child, if you were going to be entertained and take it with you, the other thing was maybe football cards and baseball cards, things like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
which we would trade. And we used to trade comic books too a lot of times
Yeah.
because
Yeah. That
did you do that too?
my elder brother, I was too young to be doing that because I didn't know the value of. If you give me money, I was only buying candies. But my elder brother was the person who started the trading, and because it was still pricey for us in the most part. But when we moved to the next when we moved from Jos to Benin City, which was in the southern part of Nigeria, I the older I got, I think the comic books got more value, and but my elder brother was at the age where he technically was becoming an adult, so the family, he was on the time, he was on the clock where it was like, you old now, so you should be reading books for adults, not children's book, that was what they considered comic books then. So yeah, they had to get rid of the comic books in the house. But if you had comic
Oh,
books, yeah, it got really bad for some people. There were people who their families literally beat them or were dragged to church to get delivered from the comic books, and
wow.
yeah, it got
Yeah, well,
brutal for some.
the
But
great
this
thing
was this
was,
was before until Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie will come out, and that would change a lot of things for a lot of
well,
people. Yeah.
I was born in 1969. So, and I was the youngest the youngest boy of a big family. So I was experiencing like the American culture in a different way because of my older brothers and sisters. So I was able to really see the context for which I was living in an interesting way. I will say that the most important and most influential stories, and this is another thing. One of the first comics I ever read was comics used to come in a pack of three. They started selling them in a pack of three, and I was there right on time to see that. And one of the first books that I ever bought and read was Howard Chaykin working on Star Wars. So it was the first time I became familiar because I had just seen Star Wars, and Star Wars blew my mind. It blew my mind. I was a little boy. I had to sit on my feet, like I had to, rather than on my butt, so I could sit higher, so I could see the screen. My eldest brother John I was visiting him in Maryland with my brother, and we were walking past a small theater. It was a more rural area of Maryland that he was living at the time. He was in his late 20s or mid 20s. I was much younger, about 17 years younger, almost 18 years younger. So yeah, I guess he was around 24. In any event, we were walking past this window, and there was a poster of this guy holding up this sword that looked like it was on fire or something, and I just stopped. And he's walking, and they're all walking, and then they turn around and look at me, staring up, just staring at this picture. And my brother says, "Do you like that?" And I looked at him for a second because I didn't want to take my eyes away from the poster. And I shook, my eyes were wide, and I shook my head without saying a word, as to gesture yes. And then I looked back at the poster, and he comes over to me in the gentle voice, and he says, "Do you want to see that?" And I looked at him again with the big eyes, and without a word, nodding my head, yes, enthusiastically with a big smile. And so that night we went to see Star Wars. And I remember, the first thing I remember is the sound, the note from the music.
Oh, this sound.
And John Williams' note. Dun, 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 and I was immediately captivated. I was so captivated. I was so enthralled that everything around me disappeared, and I truly became deeply absorbed into that experience, that cinema, that theater experience. And as a child, to see such fascinating images and such scary characters. I remember when I first saw Darth Vader, I thought, Dr. Doom, you know? And so I identified with this, like so many people did. Even I think most of the Hollywood community, and even Lucas might have even been surprised a bit at the, certainly the actors were, Harrison Ford and them, extremely surprised at the fanfare that they got within the first few weeks. But I consider myself incredibly gifted to be born at that time to experience that, because that film propelled my interest for the rest of my life with a deep passion, and it still influences my storytelling and the images and subject matter that I deal with. That, coupled with the power and majesty of 2001: Space Odyssey, as I came to it not through the film but through Jack Kirby's interpretation. There was a Treasury edition as well of the 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
This book was the graphic illustration, the way that Jack designed his images really reflected the graphic sensibilities and designs of Kubrick as well. And so I was truly compelled by the majesty of it, which brought about, in Jack Kirby's mind, from Kubrick to Kirby, Machine Man, and who is still one of my greatest, my favorite characters, mostly because of the story that the 4-issue miniseries that came later with Barry Windsor Smith, Herb Trimpe, etc., with Machine Man fighting Iron Man, and the poignant story and compelling idea of a machine being more, or as much or more, of a man than a living man, an organic man, i.e. Iron Man. So Machine Man defeats Iron Man. And sorry to give it away, but it's been around for about 40-some years. So. But he says, how does it feel to know that I'm a better man than you? Paraphrasing. But this is now a machine, X-51 Machine Man, saying this to a living man. And to me, there was such a compelling idea, the concept that a machine could a machine be more human than a human? That led to my interest in science and theoretical physics and quantum mechanics. Even my work to get into graduate school, was based on quantum mechanics, artwork, and installation art designed to explore the concepts of quantum mechanics. But most of that was inspired by the movies and by the comic books. Basically, Lucas and Kirby.
Wow, those are two great inspirations. So before we continue, well, I would like to dive into your creative process and storytelling and your embrace of teaching. We shall take a quick break, and when we come back, yeah, we should go into all those aspects of your life. So we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. We've made it 2 years, and who would have thought so? So let's go further and make it 3, make it 4, make it 5, make it 6. Who knows? 20. But we can't do this without your support. So join us on Patreon at patreon.com/white label American pod or linktree.com/white label American. Go there and you'll see our Patreon link, and you can join us for as low as $3. We have bonus content, we have bonus materials. There's so much juice over there that we don't release to the public, and yeah, you can contribute in making this podcast better. You can send questions, you can send your ideas, and also there's a lot of new things that are coming. The announcements are made on Patreon first, because we have to, take care of people who help make this podcast possible. So you can be the one to make this podcast what you want it to be. Come join us on Patreon and make it what you would like to see. Join us, make it fantastic. Keep the 5 stars coming in, keep the love coming in. Thank you for the privilege of your company. So, Ian, for you went into teaching, and then you still got to work with companies like Marvel, and then you've done stuff like creative directing, and so you've worked with studios, and you've still done sculpting. You've worked with marble, and so how did you decide which path you were going to go on, and then go with that path? How did that work for you?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I can tell you part of it was my decision, part of it was situational, and part of it was opportunities. And I would tell you that opportunities only came after oftentimes after I had done a lot to prove myself. Even today, I just want to be clear to everyone. You don't, and I'm going to say it this way, because if you're not in the industry and you want to be in the industry, there's a misconception that you break in to the industry and then somehow you're there all the time. And it's not true. You are constantly breaking into the industry. You are establishing and reestablishing yourself every job. So that being said, how did I end up in it? Most of it happens because I went after it. There is no person. A person was, and I wasn't offended by it. A person said to me that I was very lucky that I worked in the comics industry and that I knew the individuals that I know. And I tried to politely inform them that it was not luck. It wasn't. None of those people were knocking down my door, calling me up, asking me to get to know them, going out of their way to show me things. They did, but only after I made the effort. I made the effort. I went to conventions to meet them. I got to know people that they knew, then got to know them. I then proved myself by being kind and thankful every moment I had with them. Asking advice, going home and following the advice, and then returning with work that demonstrated that I listened to their advice, which made them feel like their time was not being wasted. And I perpetuated this for years and years. And not only that, but I trained. When other people played video games, I drew. When other people went out to, when I started getting older, when other people were out at the clubs, I was home drawing. When other people were um, meeting up with friends, I was taking classes for writing, or taking paying what little money I had, living on my own since I was 17, working two jobs, honestly, um, just off of welfare by the time I was 18, and living in an apartment, working a night shift and an afternoon and early evening shift, and then going to school in the day at college. So I literally homework, study, draw. Um, my point is, if you want something to come to you, you have to go to it. So that being said, my first opportunities in comic books came from going to the conventions, drawing, and eventually I was working on a shipping and receiving dock, and I would make extra money doing portraits and drawings for people of their loved ones. That helped me pay for my food. To cut to the chase, I met a man who was a delivery guy, and I did a portrait of his newborn baby for his wife for Valentine's Day. She loved it. She cried. He called me up. He said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know my wife loved the drawing that you did for her." And I would do these drawings on my lunch break when I was between moving boxes, and I lived in a tiny apartment. I used to ride a bicycle to work because it didn't matter, rain, snow. I would ride my bicycle on the parkway to get to work. I had no choice. No telephone, couldn't afford it. Um, um, but I'm not complaining. It's fine. It helps to build character when one goes through struggles.
Yeah.
Um, in any case, the guy said, I thank you so much for the wonderful drawing that you did. Is your plan to be an artist? I said, well, I love comic books. He said, oh, you want to draw comic books? I said, been my dream since I was 6 years old. He said, well, I'm a comic book dealer as well when I'm not working my regular shipping and receiving job. The man who was delivering the things to the building that I would get.
Uh-huh.
So he said, I know an artist in New York, Mark Basella, and there's another gentleman, Dan Panosian. He said, I'll speak with them and see if they're willing to talk to you. Well, within a few months, Mark agreed to speak to me. I called him using the phone, and just to be clear, a long distance call at that time was to call out of your town. It was like if you went 3 miles, you were calling long distance, and the prices were astronomical. I would get bills for $143 for a month for a phone bill, but you have to understand this was a landline. And this is 1980s, or the end of the 80s. So that amount of money, you should multiply by maybe 2 or 3 times more. So hundreds of dollars for this very poor kid who lives on his own, pays his own rent, pays his own bills. It was expensive, but I did it anyway. All I did was instead of I didn't go out to eat. I cooked all my food at home, anything to survive, so that I could do that. I insisted my brother come with me. We ended up becoming assistants to Mark Basella and learning from Mark and Dan. The first thing I learned to do some inking on was Dan Panosian allowed me to help assist him on a cover by Joe Quesada. It was I think it was Marvel it was a Marvel. I think it was called 2-in-1, and it was I think it was Ghost Rider and the Thing team up, and drawn by Joe Quesada. And Mark Pasella, my brother, and I worked on Alpha Flight with him, and and that was an X Force. We assisted him on X Force, and the Alpha Flight title I remember that we got to work on was the North Star came out as gay on the cover of that book, and that was the
Oh,
first book we got to draw on. That gave us entrance by being assistants, gave us entrance into, of course, non-paid assistants. People don't understand, to become an assistant usually slows down the artist. The artist knows what they want. The
yeah.
assistant, people don't understand that when you become an assistant, you're being trained for free, and the person that you're studying under is taking time to ensure that you are learning the basic skills while helping them accomplish their goal. But it typically doesn't, it's not as helpful to, I don't believe it's as helpful to the creator as it is to the assistant. The assistant is the one getting the better benefit because they have an insight into the industry, and they have an experience on real projects. There's nothing that beats working on a real project. So while I paid for college, I worked for free for as an
As
assistant.
an assistant with Joe.
Yes, which I was thankful for, regardless of the fact that I had very little to eat or what have you. And to be honest with you, comic book artists at the time were just starting to become popular, like stars. This is before Image.
Yeah.
So getting into the industry works by being good to people, by being thankful, by really busting your bottom and showing people that you're improving, and constantly putting yourself out there at the risk of being ridiculed. If you do those things, eventually you will get that. You will get what you want. And the jobs will come to you only after that. But you have to be clear. Be clear with what you, at least initially. See, anyone who says, I want to do this and that and the other thing, they may get all of those things, because I'm one of those people. And I find that when I have the hardest time getting work, it's when I'm confused about which direction I wish to go. I would say,
That was an important
if
point.
you want three directions, choose the direction that is most capable for you to accomplish at the moment. And on outside of that, work towards the other goal. Contacts are important, but you can know everyone in the industry, and I mean this with all sincerity. Please listen to this part. You can know everyone in the industry. It does not guarantee you a job. There are many productions that are going on here in LA, and many books that are being created by many people that I have lots of support from, and I am not working on those books or productions. And I'm not getting hired on them. Just because you're good doesn't mean you get hired.
So
So go ahead.
no, that was a great point that you made there. Just because you're good doesn't mean you get hired. And I think that applies to every aspect of life, because
But I will tell you
it
the
also
good
removes
positive things.
because sometimes we have this entitlement feeling, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's one way that we get burned sometimes, because
Yeah.
we
But I'll tell you this, keeping a positive attitude
yeah.
is important. Sometimes when I speak, because I'm so direct and honest, by the way, comic book artists, most of them tend to be quite direct and honest, because it's part of the responsibility for us to just keep going, regardless of the challenges. So we tend to sound a little too direct for people. But the truth is, it's a wonderful experience going after your dreams. It's a wonderful experience, even after failing, trying to go again and getting the recognition that you truly desire, and being able to share that love and that accomplishment with other people. And then the best result is something like this, where other people want to know how you did it, and care about what you went through. So I would say, keep a positive sensibility. Always keep believing that you can accomplish it. If you don't believe you're good enough, just put in more work. I promise you, if you just do it more, if you say, well, I put in an hour a week, then put in 4 or 5, and make those decisions. Believe it or not, it exists. And then you will start getting better and better and better. And as you get better, you feel more accomplished and more confident. And it all leads to this success. So in other words, visualize who you wish to be, work towards it. Never believe it just happens. Work towards it and stay appreciative and stay thankful, even when it's challenging and you don't get exactly the results you want. Don't worry. Keep going, because you get better and better and better, and eventually you are that person.
Awesome. So now that makes me want to flip the question. How do you avoid burnout with your creative process?
Well, I wish I could say you could avoid burnout. What I would say is identify burnout as part of the process. Then you don't have to fight it. So I think burnout is more, there are two kinds of burnout. There's a psychological burnout, like the emotional experience of the labor of the work or the rejection. And then there's the physical burnout, where your hand starts to hurt, or your eyes hurt, or your back hurts, or your neck hurts, shoulder. But burnout, so number one, to stay positive, be around positive thinkers. You know, if you're around people who believe in you, even if it's one person,
Yeah.
um, uh, keep those people who support you around you. Show them that it's a good idea to support you because you believe in it. So they should believe in you. But to beat the burnout, take some time for yourself. Always, every day. Even if it means the first 5 minutes of your day is spent with you, not speaking to anyone, just maybe having your coffee or just reading something you like, or just looking at the sky, or talking to a friend, or anything that really brings you a little joy and makes you just feel like a few minutes of your life belongs to you. Even if you have to run into the bathroom to do it. So to have that privacy, take just a few minutes for yourself every day, and that little bit of time will really help you manage a lot of stress. And then count on loved ones. Be honest if you're having a stressful time, and if you feel like you're having a hard day. It's okay to let it out. Oftentimes holding these things in makes it harder for us, and it distracts us, and it makes it hard for us to continue to produce. The next thing, I would say, good posture in terms of physically sustaining yourself, not being burnt out physically. So proper posture, your wrist and your elbow should be positioned properly, parallel to the floor. Your face and your board should be parallel to each other. You shouldn't be leaning down to look at your image. Then there's distortion to your image, and you're also causing pain to your spine.
Wow.
Get up every half hour, 15 minutes, half hour. Walk around. Doesn't have to be a long time. It does not. And this does two things. People think that just working on something longer and not stopping is impressive. It does not impress me. What impresses me is knowing how to manage yourself throughout the day as a productive individual. And the way to do that is you need two things. You need perspective, and you need a break, physical break. So perspective comes when you get up every half hour, do something, get yourself a drink so you could stay hydrated, which is very good for you health-wise and so forth. Walk around. It doesn't mean just stop drawing or working or writing. It means get up, walk. Sitting is as bad as smoking. Get up and walk. Just a few minutes. Doesn't have to be a lot. But you do it throughout the day, every half hour, Personally, I like it every 15 minutes, but every half hour, every hour, maybe every 2 hours. But do it. See if you can apply that to your daily routine, because there's a benefit of getting up and walking around outside of the physical benefit, which is no one would argue about, is absolutely good, positive. And that is that you take your eyes and your mind away from what you're working on. And when you return, you see all the mistakes. They become extremely clear to you. So now you are saving time. By taking time away, you're saving time when you return, because now you see all of the mistakes and correct them. You can make those adjustments immediately. Where if you had stayed focused, sort of trapped in your own sort of space on that page, you may never see the problem. It's a anthropological kind of experience where you step outside of the social context of or the context of the situation, so that you could better evaluate it.
I will use some of that for my own process. I'm just
It's hard. You have to get used to it. You have to get used to it. It
yeah.
starts at first. You feel like you're almost guilty, for doing it. But you start to find that, wow, you become more efficient because you do that, and you stay healthier mentally and physically.
Okay.
So that's the way to fight burnout, but don't ever imagine that it won't happen. It will. Just accept it occasionally, and just be glad that you have supportive people around you. Find at least one person that's supportive, that's going to help you through it, listen to you, talk with you, because it can get hard. This is writing, creating, developing, illustrating, all of these kinds of entertainment related fields where you're a visual or written creator, means you have to spend a lot of time alone in a room.
Yeah.
That I can tell you from many of the people that I've known, and no matter how famous or unknown, everyone goes through that challenge of that solitude. It can be a benefit at times, but most of the times, long periods of time can be challenging, on an individual. So it's important. That's why I say, even taking those few minutes where you're walking around, call a friend or watch a program or read something or do something that gets your mind off of the work and allows you to return to the work with vigor and enthusiasm.
Thank you for sharing that. Man, I could talk to you all day long, but I'll have to start wrapping it up. So let me see. I have so many questions here, but okay.
Well, I'll make the answer short. You give me the quick question if you have a lot of questions.
All right, this is what happens when I'm chatting with a friend. Yeah. But
so
all right,
let's do it as succinct as possible.
I'll give you three quick questions. I'll go with 3 quick questions. So,
okay, 3 quick questions. Go for it.
Do you use music in your creative process?
I do. That is the most quick and definitive answer.
All right. So give me 3 of your favorite musicians that keep you going while working.
3 of my favorite musicians that keep me going while working. Well, John Williams. Let's see. Well, I'm just going to stick with John Williams for now, but I'll give you a genre.
Okay.
The type of music I most like to listen to is, I like to listen to theme music from movies.
I wasn't expecting that.
And I love epic music, epic soundtracks. So I'll change the music I listen to based on the scene and story that I'm part of the story that I'm working on. If I'm working on a somber part of a story, I listen to somber music. If I'm listening to a very exciting, if I'm working on a very exciting event or scene, I'll listen to a very exciting, upbeat, maybe some form of R&B or popular culture music.
Okay, all right, hip
Otherwise,
hop.
I go straight to, if it's battle scenes, I'm listening to epic songs from like Transformers or something.
Yeah.
It's really, the music plays a big part. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Now we're gonna step out of your work and music. You're a man of many cultures. Lived in many cities. You've lived in cities with many cultures. You've also traveled a lot. What cuisine best defines you or is your go-to?
Okay. So, would you mind if I'll just tell you in
Oh,
three
you,
different ways.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So by family, the cuisine that defines me is more of a like people would refer to it as a Mediterranean diet.
Yep.
Is more of a the standard, but um, I would say my favorite food that I can never get enough of is typically Korean food. My favorite food. I love Korean food, and I also love French food
Wow, that's like um two
for
extremes.
different reasons. Yes, for different reasons. But if I go to a Korean restaurant, it's the only time with this tiny little man that I am. Just to be clear, I'm about a little over 5'8", and I'm 138 pounds approximately. So I'm a very slender guy, but I can really eat when I go to the Korean restaurant. Or what I appreciate the most is some of my dear friends that make Korean food for me. And I just because of course the best food is home cooked food.
Oh yeah.
Um, and Yeah, I could eat twice as much. Uh, I love kimchi very much.
Oh yeah.
Um, Ojingabukum, which is like a um, octopus, spicy octopus.
Hmm.
Um,
I was going to ask you if you if you dealt with the spicy, but now you
oh,
just give that away.
my name is synonymous with spicy food. Spicy food is synonymous with me. I'm an extreme guy. I like things really hot or really um, quiet or really loud or really. I'm kind of like the over the top guy. I'm going to be really sad or really excited and happy. So that plays into the drama of the work that I do. My personality.
All right.
And you have that's two questions. So
Yeah.
where's your third one?
All right. So let's see. Well, I'll actually make it four. But
Okay,
so
you can ask many that fits in. I'll answer as quickly as possible.
all right. So hobbies outside of art, food, storytelling.
Okay. So for many years, in terms of hobbies, right now, my biggest hobby, watching The Big Bang Theory. No, I would say my biggest hobby is going to gardens. I enjoy going to gardens or hillsides. I live in Los Angeles, Southern California. It is absolutely beautiful all year round. So I would say being outdoors, but not doing heavy athletics, but walking through gardens is probably my number one thing. Very relaxing, very enjoyable. I'm usually overwhelmed by the beauty of the foliage and of plant life and the mountains, hillsides in Southern California. They're just overwhelming. They're so beautiful. And that is I go to the gardens maybe once a week on the warmer weather, maybe even twice a week. There have been times I've been there 3 times a week. I even go there sometimes to work when before COVID, I would go there and spend all day sitting on the grass drawing, working on my books.
Nice.
I thought what a gifted life to have that opportunity finally in my 50s after growing up in a very different kind of experience.
Oh yeah.
To have no longer in that and in this beautiful environment. I think when someone has the opportunity to find their way, if you will your way towards something, you will eventually achieve it. So the gardens, walking through the garden.
Awesome. So, what shall we expect from PKMM in 2022?
Well, for one thing, from 2022, you'll see an upgraded website that will allow for more, not only more books being sold, but more interaction. You'll also see, I was speaking with Matthew about that the other day. Um, you'll also see the re-release and digital release of our books because our core and law of resistance was originally we were before releasing through any distributor, we wanted to reach the populace personally, meet them, distribute the books at the conventions and shows. That's how we met.
Yes,
And because we wanted that personal connection. So, but COVID hit right after we released in 2019.
that's true.
And so, and then a lot of things happened with distribution for comics and distribution of everything since then. So we're really just coming back to distribution, unfortunately. So we're looking to have those books on the website, and then I'm working on. There were two other books that were produced before COVID and during COVID that were completed. Two more full graphic novels based off of the initial stories of Law of Resistance. Nice. And I am currently working on the fourth installment. So there will be a second installment, third installment by other artists, not myself. I participated in plot development to some small degree with Jim Kruger and Matthew Collada. We have a holiday special, and we have a book called Son of Resistance, which is a full graphic novel series about 6 issues. I apologize. And then my book that I'm working on now. And so there will be about 600 pages worth of new story.
Lovely.
And for Core as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were extension stories off of Core. Several different titles that my brother had developed along with Jim Kruger and other writers. His son, Guy Dorian Jr., who is a writer and regularly works on those books with my twin brother. And you will see those titles as well. So it's really exciting. Occasionally I do other work for video game companies and others, which I've had the distinct pleasure of working on some really tremendous characters that everyone knows and loves. So it's really, you could look forward to those things. And I look forward to it too, because there are a lot of jobs and projects that come about that I don't even know. Someone will call me and present something to me, and I'll say absolutely. I will be working on something, however big or small I can contribute. I will be working on some things with my dear friend Kevin Grievous. He's an inspiration to me. Many people might know him from his being the co-creator of Underworld, the trilogy.
Oh yeah,
but yeah.
Awesome.
And Kevin is a tremendous writer and filmmaker, and I'm really excited to do at least something for him. I'm trying so much to break away, complete all my work, and still be able to do something with him, because I'm sure it'll be magical.
Awesome. Yeah, I recall you telling me something about that. So yeah, I'll wait until you give me, you when you make the announcement, then yeah, I'll run with it. But yes, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm really excited.
As am I, and I appreciate your enthusiasm for it. It means a lot to me. It really does.
I love your work, and I love seeing it coming, and yeah, it's something that I really enjoy. So, final question. Yes, every guest gets the final question. This is your freestyle moment. Something you would like to leave the audience with. It could be a quote from a book you've read, or a quote from someone that inspired you, or something from one of your works. So it's up to you.
Well, in the back of my book, I gave an creator's and editor's note, and there was something I wanted that I discovered, truly discovered. I mean, we all kind of understand it, but saying it out loud makes us really think about our place, how we identify our situation in life. And in it, I wrote that I discovered when creating these sort of good guys and bad guys and some of the people in between, like, are they really good or have good intentions but have bad results, or bad intentions and maybe the results are different? Everyone is both the hero and the victim in their own story. And that was my quote. So we have to understand that, open our minds to other people. Keep your mind open. Choose understanding, forgiveness, and love before any other response. Take a step back, even from your haters, and figure out how you can make your community stronger by being a better version of anyone else. And try to teach that to the younger people. Always choose the better route, as challenging as it may seem. And you will inspire a generation of people you may never have even met.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Hey, where can people find and follow Ian Dorian? Anyone wants to do that?
Say that again. Where can they find me?
Yes.
Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm not on TikTok, although I might get one. But
Neither am I.
I'm on LinkedIn. But I have to say, I really enjoy saying hello to people. I often, most of the people I meet would like advice but I'm really a fun-loving guy. I really like appreciating the people that appreciate me. So if you're going to come around to say hello, find me on Instagram. You'll see my drawings, my posts. It's really just me reaching out to people. But I am a bit of a reclusive person with regards to my personal life, etc. But as far as my, if you want to find me, come to a convention when the shows open up, because I really love meeting people. As you know,
100.
What a pleasure it is, because I have to tell you, a lot of the people that I meet inspire the characters I create. I never know which person it's going to be, or maybe it's an aspect of their behavior or the way they dress or the way they look inspired me to imagine like new characters or something. But it's the people that I meet that I'm a big fan of other people, is my point, and it inspires me,
Yeah, I can testify to that. So, yes, go out there. You can look out at the comic conventions. Look for PKMM Entertainment, and you'll have a great time talking to Ian Dorian. He's one of the best people to talk to.
Thank you. And just again, one more mention. They can always find us at the PKMM Entertainment website.
Oh, yes.
And they can collect the books. They could order them. They can even order some of the lower published books that we made that are more exclusive. Those are on the website as well. And they can comment if they'd like. And honestly, just reach out. Reach out to us. I'm always happy to do the best I can to respond to people in an appreciative and kind manner. Sometimes I can give elaborate responses. Sometimes they're short. And if they're short, please understand I'm probably either under a deadline or managing something. But I will always do my best to be as appreciative and thankful to all the people that reach out to me.
Hey, Ian, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you doing this for me. And I'll make sure I have the website in the show notes. And please, everyone listening, go to the website. Ian he's one of the best people to reach out to. Trust me. If he's busy, he will still get back to you. Trust me on that. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. 2022 is going to be a great year. Keep the love coming in. You can leave feedback on the website. You can do that either by audio or leave a written message. All works good. All right. Thank you for the privilege of your company.
And thank you for the privilege of yours.
Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoy the show, we'll appreciate if you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any questions, comments, or have someone who will be a good guest on the show, or you want to be on the show, send us a message at whitelabelamerican@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.